Hello there, Whipper here, and today I'm going to be showing you the Elemental Orbs mod, and this mod adds loads of different kinds of orb into Minecraft, well, Elemental Orb, which have certain effects on the environment and mobs and stuff like that, which are really awesome. And there's tons of orbs, as you can see by looking at my hotbar at the moment. But anyway, before you can actually craft any of these orbs, you're going to need to do some mining and crafting to get the key components for all the crafting recipes for these orbs. So first up, we've got the basic orb, and to craft this, you're going to need 4 pieces of glass and a chest, and then you can craft yourself an orb. And this orb is used in all the crafting recipes for the different kinds of orb. Next up, you can make something called an Omega Upgrader, and this uses Omega Stone, which you get from mining Omega Ore. And this is what it looks like. It has a cool little glowing texture or something like that, and you can mine that and get Omega Stone. And using the Omega Stone, you can put it in the crafting grid there, along with 4 iron ingots, and craft yourself an Omega Upgrader. And this enables you to put your water orbs or nature orbs into this, and then it'll make it into a Omega versions. So if we go over here, you can see I've got Omega versions of all the other orbs, and this basically just increases the radius in which they affect and stuff like that, but I'll go into that later. But next up, we've got the aluminium ore, which you can mine here, and it drops the actual block itself, which you need to put in the furnace and then smelt it into aluminium ingots, which you're going to need later to craft the thermite. So to craft thermite, you're going to need to get aluminium powder and iron oxide, and to get iron oxide you just put a water bucket along with iron ingot into the crafting grid and you get yourself some iron oxide. And then to get the aluminium powder, you just put an aluminium ingot into the crafting grid and it gets yourself some aluminium powder. And sorry for you American viewers here that want me to say it as aluminum, but it's aluminium because I'm English and all that. So there you go, and once you put those in the crafting grid, you'll get yourself some thermite, and then you can use that to craft some of the orbs. So yeah, I'll get onto that later, but now I'm going to go through all the orbs, showing you what they do. So first up, I'm going to be showing you the fire orb. So if we use this now, you can see it sets all the mobs in a certain radius around you on fire. So we've got cooked pig now, let's walk around, and that should drop some bacon, lovely bacon, but there you go. So there we go, some lovely dying pig sounds, and that's basically what the fire orb does. But next up we've got the lightning orb, and this just strikes down lightning on all of the mobs nearby, and this should be really cool to test out with pigs since they turn into pigmen. So there we go, instantly we've got some pigmen, so you don't have to worry about trying to get lightning in a thunderstorm to come down and hit the pigs. Now it's just a lot less look based, and you can instantly turn pigs into pigmen if you really want pigmen in your main world, but there you go. But next up we've got the explosion orb, and we can test this out on the pigmen, because this basically just makes the mobs nearby explode like that. So pretty much a similar size explosion to TNT, and there we go, we've exploded the pigmen, brilliant. So that's what that orb does. So next up we have the ice orb, and this basically just puts an ice block down near anywhere there's a mob around your radius. So if I right click there, you can see we've got an ice block that's surrounded the chicken, and now he's frozen in time, so he'll never be able to move from that spot. Poor chicken, look at him, he's like preserved in a glass block. How awesome is that? But there you go, and it also turns water in the radius around the where you use the orb into ice. There we go, we've got ice in the water there. And sometimes there's a bit glitching, you have to disconnect and reconnect before all the ice appears, but it will turn to ice, so that's kind of awesome. But next up we've got the dry orb, and this basically just turns all the land around you into like a dry landscape. So we can see we've got sand, all the trees have disappeared, and we've got no grass anymore, and that's kind of awesome. And we've also got some like dead shrubs. So there we go, that's the dry orb, and you can just spam that around there, and you can see that it just makes all the land dry. So it's not very visually appealing, but if you really want a dry landscape, you can use that orb. And next we've got the nature orb, which basically just spawns loads of grass and trees, and you can use it to turn dry land back into lovely land, stuff like that. So you can see it spawns loads of grass around and trees and shrubs and stuff like that. So that's kind of awesome. And also if you're near crops, it'll actually make the crops grow, so that's another use for this. And next up we've got the water orb, and this one's kind of weird because basically when you right click it just makes like a pillar of water somewhere. I don't know if I've installed this wrong and it's meant to do something else, but this is what it's doing for me. It just spawns a pillar of water, so I presume you could just put them all next to each other and make yourself a little pond or something manually. But there you go, that's the water orb. So next up is the nether orb. So if I right click with a nether orb, you'll see it places loads of nether blocks around me as well as mushrooms, and it also spawns some pigmen. So we've got pigmen spawn there, which is kind of awesome, so there you go. And you can just spam this around a lot if you want to turn your normal world into the nether. And it also turns water into lava, so that's kind of cool. And because I turned it there, it made some obsidian, but yeah, there you go. And it also spawns soul sand and nether water and stuff like that. So if you really want the nether in the overworld, you could use this, and it's kind of awesome, so there you go. But next up we've got the defender orb, and I really like this one. because what it does, it spawns 2 wolves that are automatically tamed to you whenever you right click, and these wolves will help you protect yourself and stuff like that. So say you've got no sword but you've got this orb, you can use this and you'll have 2 little pets that will come around and help you everywhere. And I'm sure you know what wolves do, so there you go, that's the use of the defender orb. But next up we have the light orb, and for this I'm going to go to the night time so I can actually see what this is actually doing. So if I right click with this, it will spawn torches around my radius, on trees and blocks and stuff like that, and light up the area around me. And this is really useful if you've it's about to turn to night time and you ain't got any torches but you've got one of these, or you've got torches and you're just too lazy to walk around and place them down. So there you go, it just lights up the area so no aggressive mobs can spawn. But next up we've got the heat orb, and this one basically just sets on fire everything in the radius around you. And also if you've got some blocks that can be smelted like clay, it'll actually smelt them into their other forms, such as brick if you smelt clay. So if you're near a clay block, it'll actually turn it into brick, which is kind of awesome. And no, I think my wolves are on fire. Oh well, there goes my wolves. They're being burnt to death by my use of the heat orb. It's not very kind, but anyway. Next up, let me just go back to day again so you can actually see what I'm doing. We've got the teleportation orb. So say I was in multiplayer and there were other players on the server, I could use an anvil and rename this teleportation orb into their name, and if I then use this orb, it will teleport me to that player name that you've named the orb. So there we go. But I can't use it in single player obviously because it will crash, and since there's no other players on the server, so that wouldn't be helpful. But finally, for this lot of orbs, we've got the end orb. So if I right click with this, it basically just does the same thing as the nether orb, but instead of placing down nether blocks and stuff like that, it places down end blocks. And also it will spawn enderman if it was night time, and I think it may be only if I was on a higher difficulty, but you have to try that out yourself. So it should be spawning enderman and stuff like that. So that's the end orb, and it also spawns those obsidian towers, which is kind of useful. So if you really want the end in your overworld, you could use this. So there you go, that's pretty much all the orbs that this mod adds. Now I'm going to be showing you the Amiga form of all these orbs. So as I mentioned at the start, you can actually convert any of the normal orbs into Amiga versions just by crafting yourself an Amiga upgrader, and then you just place down the Amiga upgrader which you've crafted, and then right click with the orb you want to convert, and it converts it into a Amiga version. But I'm now using it instead of right clicking on it for some reason. It doesn't seem to be working, but there we go. So I've just right clicked with the light orb here, and now I've got an Amiga light orb. And basically the difference with this is it just has a larger radius. So actually with this Amiga light orb, it just places down glowstone instead of torches. So if you want to place down glowstone instead of torches when you use this, that's the purpose of this. And there we go, you can see we've got glowstone everywhere. So there we go. And with things like the heat orb and the end orb, it just increases the radius of the effect it has. So the end orb, if I actually go over and get the upgraded end orb here and then use it, you can see that the radius is much larger than just with the normal orb. So there we go, if you want to cover a larger area with end and stuff like that, or nether, you can do that. And some of them, such as the teleportation orb, just have more uses. So just with the normal teleportation orb, it'll let you have 10 teleports before it'll run out of durability and break. But with the upgraded Amiga version, you can actually use it 30 times. So I'm not actually going to go through all of these, but the cool thing is with the Amiga Defender orb, it'll actually spawn iron golems instead of wolves. So there we go, we can see we've got loads of iron golems, and when I was using the normal Defender orb, it spawned loads of wolves, which is why there's hundreds of wolves around me. But there we go. So I'm not going to go through all the Amiga orbs because they're pretty much the same as the normal orbs, just have increased radius and increased stats and stuff like that. But there you go, that's pretty much everything for the Elemental Orbs mod. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next mod video.